minutes are mostly going to be us, or basically you doing an introduction, and then we are going to talk a bit like introductionary, etc.
Sure, absolutely.
But it's up to you when you would like to start.
Yeah.
I see that some people are joining right now, so.
Yeah. No, vamos a ir dando la bienvenida. If you allow me, guys, with 5, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, maybe a little Spanish, and then we change to English. And everyone here in the middle, if you can help us with translation or something like that, you are open. O sea, que ustedes pueden, el que quiera ayudar también en la traducción, lo que sea, también están súper abiertos porque esto es totalmente auto-organizado. Le damos la más cordial bienvenida. Me parece absolutamente extraordinario. Permítanme grabar acá. Estamos operando en un meetup que es bastante atípico en nuestros horarios tradicionales, producto de que nuestros visitantes, tanto Barry como Christian, están en Holanda, son sus 8 de la noche, y por eso quisimos que esto fuera en vivo y directo y ustedes pudieran participar. So in this time, I'll bring them to a little brief about you guys, that you are in Netherlands and 8 p.m. That's why we are here in a different hour, in like 2 p.m. here in Panama. So, le damos la más cordial bienvenida a todos. Muchísimas gracias por venir. I'm surprised how many people are connected right now. I think it's absolutely great. Christian and Barry son bastantes amigos de la comunidad de Ágiles de Panamá. Los hemos organizado porque queríamos que nos presentaran su más reciente investigación y trabajo relacionado con el Zombie Scrum Guide. Va a ser una actividad bastante dinámica. Esperen que pueden poder participar, y me parece que además es un excelente momento para que todos ustedes puedan hacer preguntas, hacer todo lo que ustedes consideren con semejantes entrenadores oficiales de Scrum que nos están presentando hoy en edición especial para nosotros este espacio. So, Barry and Christian, the people is yours, my friend. I bring in a little introduction. Be yourself.
Cool. Well, thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the kind words. I can only fully agree with what you just said. Very kind of you. And
trust me.
And thanks everyone for joining this session. We're honored to have you as participants, and let's just make it a fun and interesting and valuable session for all of us. The purpose of this session is to, in a very interactive way, explore the topic of zombie Scrum. And if you are going to attend more of the meetups that Ulysses is going to host, then you notice one characteristics, and that is that they are never boring and always interactive. And although Chris and I are going to do a bit of talking, we definitely want to involve you as well during this session. Chris, do you have anything to add to this slide?
No, you're doing fine, so go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, and maybe just a very short introduction. My name is Barry from the Netherlands, Scrum.org trainer, co-founder of the Liberators, and someone that is very passionate about liberating structures, and also to use that in our quest on resolving, fixing, preventing, fighting zombie Scrum. And I think all those elements will be a part of the upcoming hour as well. And maybe, Chris, can you maybe also talk a bit about yourself and make a connection with the book?
Of course. So, Christian Verwijs, and together with Barry, we founded the Liberators a couple of years ago. Just like Barry, I'm also a trainer, professional Scrum trainer for Scrum.org, and steward for the Professional Scrum Master 2 class. I have a background as software developer, as psychologist, kind of weird combination, but it works out pretty well. And like Barry, I'm super passionate about liberating structures, and we've been using them for 5 years now, I think. So you'll find a lot of this in the book, The Zombie Scrum Survival Guide, that Barry, Johannes, Sharto, and I wrote to help organizations all over the world improve how they work with Scrum.
Yeah, and if you show the next slide, then they can also, well, that's actually already Johannes, but yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's like the guy with the curly hair, that can only be one, that's Christian. And then you've got the one with the red beard. Well, that's not me, so that should be Johannes. And then the left guy, that's me. maybe already go to the next one, Chris, then we can make it a bit more interactive. Because what we're going to do is we're going to talk a bit about the symptoms of zombie scrum and the causes. And after that, we will help you to get your own thinking started about, so what are things that you would like to know about zombie scrum? But let's start with the symptoms first. And if everyone could open their chat, it's in the bottom part of the screen that you should see the function chat. And the question for you is, let's take a minute to study this illustration and see if you can spot any symptoms of zombie scrum. So take a minute to study this illustration to see if you can spot any symptoms of zombie scrum. And if you have got anything, then just share it in the chat.
Un minuto para que, si pueden identificar algún tipo de síntoma del Scrum Zombie. Y lo pueden colocar en el chat de Zoom, por favor.
Yes, exactly, Carlos, in Israel. What else?
That's perceptive. Yeah, nothing in done.
Yeah, that's a good one. Some of you are even mentioning symptoms that I forgot about. So like, oh yes, that's what we try to illustrate as well. So I think you already spotted maybe even all of them, because indeed there's no sprint goal, or at least the sprint goal is something with zombies. The last retrospective that they've done is years ago. So there's lack of improvement. There's no drive to improve. There's no done software or no done products. Everything is in to do or doing. I think years ago, someone achieved a Scrum certificate, but the spider web illustrates that it's not really actively used. All the developers have their headphones on, which is not necessarily wrong, but we wanted to visualize indeed what Denise said, is that there's no communication going on between the developers, and one of them turned out into a zombie and the other ones don't even notice it. Chris, do you have any other symptoms?
Well, apparently there's nothing to celebrate because the stakeholders were not invited.
Yeah, exactly. So these are not the ultimate symptoms, but these are some of the symptoms that we see a lot. Like no drive to improve, there's nothing to celebrate, no contact with the clients or with the stakeholders. Some of the symptoms that we recognize a lot. Now the question is, what are some of the causes that make zombie scrum appear? Is this something, Chris, that shall I explain this one, or do you want to explain that one?
Oh no, I can start with this one. Just for full transparency, Barry has already done this presentation before. This is my first time, so I'm kind of figuring out what he's talking about when and where, but I'm like a coin machine. You can just make me press a button and I'll talk. So we've identified quite a number of causes of zombie scrum in our work, in our own research. And I think one of the most important causes is that people don't understand the purpose of the Scrum framework. So for many teams, we found that Scrum is all about the mechanics. It's about the roles, it's about the artifacts, it's about the events of the Scrum framework, but that's it. And at the end of the sprint, there's no working software, there's no done increment, stakeholders are not involved, as Barry just said. And then what's the point of working with Scrum if it's only about the roles, the artifacts, and the events? So when people don't understand that the Scrum framework is ultimately designed to help you reduce risks, then all the rest kind of falls apart, because ultimately Scrum framework is all about reducing risks for your stakeholders, for yourself, for your organization. So that's one of the biggest causes that we found. And another cause, and then I'll pass back to Barry, is the one that we visualized here, is that in many organizations, there is this distinction between the IT and the business. And sometimes they even have their own buildings. For one company that I worked for, they actually had physically different buildings. And that's so weird because these days, every company is a software organization in one form or another. So it is not possible for IT and business to be separated, yet in the way many organizations talk about it, it is separated. And that's another big cause of zombie Scrum, because then you're only doing Scrum within your software team, but all the rest of the organization is ignored and you're dependent on that and nothing's happening there. So big impediment.
Yep. And another cause is the one that Chris is going to show. Right. Now, and there it is. And in a nutshell, you could explain this one as that the team or the organization doesn't really have a clue in why they are using Scrum. So if you, the why that they explain to you is, let's say debatable, it's open for a discussion. So if you would ask someone in an organization, so why are you using Scrum? An answer is that some kind of doomsday scenario was predicted for them, like we must work with Scrum, otherwise we as an organization are doomed. Or it could simply be, well, our agile coach told us to use Scrum and he was very convincing and that's why we ended up with Scrum, but no idea what the connection is with empiricism and how it actually is going to help us. Could also be that your CEO has learned in some kind of CEO gathering that other CEOs in their organization are also using Scrum. And they don't want to stay behind and therefore also just started using it. And some of the books of Scrum do some promises about extreme productivity increases. And well, that's something that many organizations would like to have. So let's start use Scrum to see if we can double or triple the output that we produce in our organization.
Wait, Barry, what are you saying? Are you saying that Scrum is not about delivering twice or doing twice the work in half the time?
Well, not really, no. Twice the value would be excellent, by the way. So these are not the best reasons to start working with Scrum, because it could quickly end up with zombie Scrum, because like Christian explained, let's say the heart of Scrum, like empiricism, is not connected at all to all of these reasons. We've got 2 more causes to go, Chris, so that you know as well.
Yeah, but I think that the next one is quite easy because we covered some of that already. What we also see is a lot of organizations start with Agile transformations. I'm sure that you are part of those as well, as Barry and I have also been. But often it kind of looks like this picture, like everyone goes to a training and that's it. You have a certificate, you're a Scrum Master, you have a certificate, you're a product owner, and that's that. But usually the people that are product owners, for example, don't have any mandate to change anything about the product. They have no mandate to change anything that's on the product backlog. They just have to take orders from the stakeholders. That doesn't work. If you call that person a product owner, what are you doing with Scrum? And that's a reality that we see with many organizations that start with Agile transformation. It's just a couple of words that people change, a few new job titles, and that's it. And that's when you get zombie Scrum.
Yep. And that one, the way Chris explains it, is basically strongly related to this cause, because this is how many organizations perceive or use their Agile transformation. They just see it like, an Agile transformation is quite easy. We just go to that shop around the corner and just buy a bunch of best practices, implement or install those best practices, and then after a while, Scrum should work, right? The instant transformation is done. So we're just going to buy the Spotify model, and while we are in this shop, let's get some enterprise coaches as well, and let's get a bunch of these sprint goal templates and a bunch of story points. Let's implement it and, let's expect immediate success. And what they learn is that many of these best practices that used and they could be perfectly fine and successful in other organizations don't always fit the local context of your own organization. And well, that's the conclusion of this one. Chances are you end up with zombie Scrum as well. Luckily, there are many things that you can do to prevent it or fix it. So don't worry, we'll also dive deeper into that as well. But for now, we've explained a couple of symptoms and some of the causes. We want to help you get your own thinking started about, so what do you recognize, what's your experience, and what are questions that you have? And to do that, we're going to do impromptu networking, which is a liberating structure. In short, you'll experience 3 rounds in which you'll have a conversation with 1 or 2 other people. Each time you'll come back into this main channel after 1 round, we'll reshuffle the groups and then you'll go back for another round and discuss a new question. It might be obvious, but just to be clear, of course, it's perfectly fine if you speak in your local language if you are in the breakout rooms. You don't have to stick to English at all. Ulysses, setting up the breakout rooms, is that something that you are doing or shall I do it?
You have the power, my friend.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to do it right now. Let's see how many participants do we have.
I can already explain the first step, Barry, while you configure the breakouts. So maybe for everyone, while Barry is setting up the breakout rooms, just take a minute for yourself and just reflect on all the causes and the symptoms that we already shared. And try to answer this question that's visible now. What are the symptoms and causes of zombie Scrum that you recognize? And maybe there are some other things that you see in the teams that you work with that you also recognize. Just for yourself and in silence, just make a few notes. And when Barry's done setting up the breakout rooms, we'll invite you into them.
And I'm done, by the way. So we're going to use a time box of 4 minutes. Let's see. Yep. So correct. So see you back in 4 minutes and enjoy the conversation.
Great. Enjoy. Are we also in breakouts, Barry?
No, I left Ulysses and you out of the...
Okay. So otherwise, people have to talk English, of course. Might not be...
Yeah.
Or Dutch. Or I have to talk Spanish or Portuguese. Or...
Dutch will be absolutely insight for me. If everyone here
it will be very
Dutch.
Insightful. I have to go to the toilet for a moment, just a second.
And translate the question and the main topics of your,
excellent. Thanks.
In the chat.
So I see someone still joining. If it's someone that already was there, perfect. Otherwise, I would say let's not keep adding people to the meetup.
Okay.
I think it's a bit confusing.
If you allow me this one, the last one, because Pablo is a good friend of our community, a big fan of yours. He's a big fan of your work, actually, and the liberation instruction.
I'm going to put him, you can do the...
Pablo,
Pablo,
déjame explicarte algo. La regla era no dejar entrar a nadie, but I let you know, Barry, about you. I told him exactly. Pablo is a good friend of mine, a good friend of the Agile Panama community. It's unbelievable. Don't let him in.
Thank you. I don't want to be a zombie.
Excellent. That's good. Yeah. So what we've just done, Pablo, is Chris and I gave a short introduction to some of the symptoms of zombie Scrum and the causes. And we are doing right now a first round of impromptu networking, which is a liberating structure. Do you know it? Impromptu networking?
Yep.
Excellent. So, but it's only for 1.5 minutes and then that round is over. So I'm going to put you in a breakout room for the next round. But I'm going to explain that step once everyone is back in the main channel.
Sounds great.
Yep, cool.
So Harry, Pablo is a great fan, a promoter of liberation structure here in Latam.
Yes,
Oh, cool.
Bobby and
Yeah.
Christian, you filmed a video for us when we were organizing the immersion in Buenos Aires, well,
Right.
Buenos Aires,
Ah,
Santiago, and Lima.
Right, I remember. Oh, nice.
I did one of the translations to the subtitles.
Ah,
Nice.
oh,
Good to
cool.
see
I
you.
did my best.
Yeah, you-
Oh, you did it wonderful. You did it wonderful, my friend.
And do you have immersion workshops planned, or is it all difficult right now because of Corona?
The second, yes.
Mm.
But we're going to be celebrating on Saturday the 1,000 members of the community of the Latin American community in Telegram for Liberate Instructors,
Oh,
and the one for Spain. I think it's had the first. Well, it's weird because who are we? The community is kind of a weird question because there are so many communities and so on. It's kind of like the ones that are in the meetup, the ones that are so it is difficult to organize an immersion at the moment, but Ulises and the team from Panama, they did a great job keeping us all quite like improving better and better. Like back in April, one liberator instructor per day was being practiced. I don't know if you, so that was intense. Panarchy, no more, please, no more.
Why? This is my favorite. This is my favorite.
Yes.
Pablo, here we are. Hey, Pablo, and here we are with the Liberators in Panama. To me, it's unbelievable. To me, right now, I'm really understanding what's going to happen.
well, so are we. So I think everyone's coming back, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So welcome back to the main channel. We're just waiting a moment until everyone's back.
Yes.
Chris, I'm going to reshuffle the rooms. Can you explain?
Yeah, so in a moment, Barry is going to reshuffle the rooms right now. So in a moment, you're going to find yourself again in a breakout room with another partner or two other partners. And our question to you is just again, share the symptoms and causes of zombie scrum that you recognize, or maybe additional ones. And basically just continue the conversation. Maybe you'll find new things together. Maybe you can build on some of the insights from the previous round already.
Cool. And I'm going to make it 3 minutes. Yep. Okay, I'm ready. New groups. See you back in 3 minutes this time.
Great. It could be, Barry, that some people are in the waiting room. They maybe closed because I think I saw Yarin before.
Do you know that, Ulysses? Was Yarin in the...
I don't know her. That's why I didn't say anything. I don't know who is she. So that's why I don't know.
Oh, wait. I see that one person is...
Sometimes people accidentally leave the whole Zoom instead of just a breakout room. So
I needed to reshuffle one person because one was alone in the room. 2, 3, 3. Yeah, should be fine like this. Yep.
So after this, is there another round, or are we then moving into?
Yeah. No, one more round. You can already show it, Chris, because other people don't see it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay. Let me translate to Spanish.
Yeah. So this is the Chris. They're gonna do. This is round 2. They are doing this one.
Oh no, I explained just continue the conversation. I didn't know that you had 3 different.
Oh, that is fine. But then we're just gonna move. We're just gonna skip this one because this was round 2.
Yeah. Then just do the final one.
Yeah, I'm just gonna explain this one, but that's fine. That's fine.
And then we have the part 2. What stakeholders need.
Ulysses, I see Jacqueline in the main channel.
Jacqueline, I don't know. Yeah, it's in the main.
Hi, Jacqueline. I'm not sure if you dropped out of a room.
Hola, Jacqueline, ¿te saliste del salón o llegaste aquí por error?
Ay, disculpa, ¿cómo me dijiste?
Que si te saliste por error o estabas en un salón y saliste al principal o acabas de entrar acá.
No, es que perdí la conexión.
She lost her connection. Internet connection.
Oh, that's fine. Well, the rooms are going to be closed in about 10 seconds, so she can just...
Okay. Si quieres, esperas acá, Jacqueline, ¿te parece? Porque ya se va a cerrar la sala.
And I see Victor Henriquez in the waiting room. I'm fine with letting him in, but only if he joined the session earlier. Do you want me to allow Victor to join, Ulysses?
He was in the session. Maybe he has issue with the internet connection as well.
Yep, he's joining again.
Yep.
And people are coming back in the main channel.
Yep.
Welcome back. We're waiting a moment until everyone pops back in. I think everyone's back. So Barry, shall I already explain the next round, or are there still people in breakout rooms?
I'm setting up the breakout room. Some people had connection issues, so I need to reshuffle some rooms. Let me see.
We're going into the final round, and in this final round, you'll again find yourself with someone else. And the question to reflect on now is shown on the screen. So now that we're in this third round, what questions, thoughts, or concerns do you have about preventing or maybe fixing zombie scrum? What have you discovered in your conversations? Maybe you have ideas on what you can do to prevent or overcome zombie scrum with your team. I think Barry's going to set a time box of 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I made the rooms a bit bigger so that if someone drops out, you're not alone. So see you back in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think some people have connection issues because they sometimes come back into the waiting room. But everyone seems to be in a breakout room right now.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if they are back, Chris, then I'm just going to ask, okay, take a moment and just write your question in the chat. Yep. I'm fine if they do it in Spanish, Ulysses, so that you can maybe translate it. If it's more convenient for people to write in Spanish, then let's do that.
Yeah, because it's a lot of people from other countries. I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable in Costa Rica, Panama, high English level, but in others don't. In other countries, it's different.
I'm just gonna grab a glass of water. 1 moment.
No, why? No.
Barry, where are you going? You can't leave.
Why?
But what a pleasure, Ulysses, that you're hosting this for and with us. This is great.
No, to me, it's absolutely honor. Do you know I'm a big fan of you? I think you are doing amazing work. Here in Panama, I think I feel very grateful for your patience and help.
Of course, yeah, because the people that are joining this meetup. Are there a lot of people that were part of the earlier meetup that you organized as part of the Liberators Network user group?
Yeah, some of them. Someone I didn't see before, but it's so many people. Remember, Agile Panama has a 2000 members. So I don't know all. I know a lot, but yeah, but maybe it's a good opportunity to repeat from our own with the same material translated into Spanish. And then I share with you the result with another part of the community. If you agree, I can use it and translate it. And maybe in a next Thursday at 8 p.m. at our 8 p.m. and experiment with the information.
I would go ahead. I think I can totally imagine that English is not easy for most people. So then the Spanish version is much easier. So if you can do that, yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome.
You agree too, right, Barry?
I don't know what it was about, but I agree up front. So
well, Ulysses suggested to redo this meetup in Spanish next week.
Sure. Yes.
Somewhere soon. I like that idea a lot. I mean, we can't do it. We cannot do it in Spanish. So.
And I think, Ulysses, that goes for most meetups that we do. If you like, for example, a session that we've done on a string, just feel free to translate it and do it with the local community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no problem.
So when people
I'm waiting for my purchase. I'm waiting for my. I told you later. I already buy it. Your bundle.
So welcome back, everyone. I'm not sure if people are still joining. For the last 3 rounds, you had a conversation with, if correct, different people about what did you notice or recognize about Zombie Scrum, and what questions, thoughts, or concerns do you have? And the idea that we have is for the remaining, well, let's say for the upcoming 20 minutes to have a conversation about things that you would like to know more about. So let's just take a moment for yourself to write down your question, thought, or concern that you have about Zombie Scrum in the chat. And it's perfectly fine if you do it in Spanish. If that's easier for you, then Ulysses will just translate it. So if you have a question, a thought, or a concern that you would like to share or have us respond to, just write it in the chat. Could be in Spanish if that's easier for you. And then we'll take about 20 minutes to just have a conversation about it. So go ahead.
I'm super curious what everyone's been talking about, so we'll see.
I will ask the question in without writing in the chat. You mentioned when the product owner doesn't have the power to take decisions. This is something that is, well, it's happened. And what is your advice? Because for him or for the Scrum Master to deal with this kind of situation, because it's a little stress when even when you have a relation with the product owner, because maybe it's your colleague, your friend, you know him or her for the last 5-10 years, but you know she or he is struggling in a difficult situation. What's your advice with that?
You want me to take that one, Barry, or do you want?
Yeah, you can. If you already have something in mind, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question, Carlos. Very recognizable. I can only tell you what worked for me. But in any case, I think that if you know it's not working and this product owner is just not cut out for it, then one of the Scrum values is respect, and another is openness, and another is courage. So in that case, I still would have that conversation, because my experience is that if you sense that it's not working for the product owner, they usually feel the same way if they're completely honest with themselves. And sometimes it can even be a relief that they can take another role, maybe as part of the Scrum team, by focusing more on business analysis, for example. So that's one way to deal with it. If that's not possible, if your product owner is very adamant about staying in that role, what you can always do is create transparency around what happens when your product owner is not doing the things you would expect from a product owner. So what is happening with regards to the value that you're delivering to your stakeholders, with regards to how clear it is what the Scrum team has to work on in the coming sprint. And it's not about judging the product owner, but it's about creating transparency so that you can together as a Scrum team see what's not happening because a product owner is not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. And it could, of course, also be that the product owner is in potential an awesome product owner, but that he or she is just stuck in the organizational system and doesn't have or doesn't get the mandate to be the product owner that, well, basically is expected of the product owner. And that's something that I've experienced quite often, that the product owner knew how he or she needed to fulfill the role, but somehow there was so much bureaucracy in the organization that it was quite difficult to be the product owner. So in that case, a very practical one, just something that you can do is, Chris and I created the exercise management in Scrum. I can share the link later. A very practical one would be to just do that exercise, because you create transparency about what happens to the role of the product owner and basically to Scrum as a whole, if the product owner cannot fulfill their role as how it should be fulfilled. So basically what you do, you make the impediments transparent, and you can also make the impact transparent. What happens to Scrum or to empiricism if the product owner isn't responsible for the product budget? Or what happens to Scrum if the product owner isn't responsible for determining when to release? So just do the exercise, make it transparent, and help your product owner.
Yeah. Fully agree.
Oh, that's a nice one, Chris. How do you think the new Scrum Guide helps to avoid zombie Scrum? Well, I'm gonna be like the bad cop. I'm gonna say that although I tremendously like the update of the new Scrum Guide, the reason that I would say that it could lead to even more zombie Scrum is that it became even less prescriptive. So they moved from 18 pages to 13 pages, and they removed all the how parts that were in there, like how to do a daily Scrum, how to do a sprint planning, etc. I would say that experienced Scrum teams, or, well, you don't really have to be experienced, but it could be that you see it as a great opportunity to make Scrum work in your own context. It could also be that you just even more quickly end up with zombie Scrum because you don't know how to fill the gap that the Scrum Guide offers you. So I would say that there's also, but I'm going to leave that opportunity to Chris, but I would say that one side could be that you interpreted the new Scrum Guide to quickly end up with zombie Scrum. Chris, this is the moment that you can also share a positive thing.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with your position. I think the people that are passionate about Scrum and understand its purpose, they are the people that will already read the new Scrum Guide. The people who don't care about it are not going to read the Scrum Guide. So that's kind of a catch-22. But I think the good thing that we can do as a Scrum community all over the world is to make sure that the people that are relying on Scrum, even though they may not even know it, that you make sure that they understand what Scrum is about, and not in a mechanical sense, like Scrum is a method, you have to do it this way, and otherwise it's not Scrum. No, you have to explain that in complex work, there's a lot of risk, a lot of unpredictability. And stakeholders, management does not want to have, they don't want risks, because risks are a danger to the business. And if you explain that Scrum can help them navigate those risks more effectively, I think you're going to get a lot further with the people that you're working with. And the new Scrum Guide does make it easier to explain the purpose, because it's less focused on the mechanics and more on the purpose of the Scrum framework. So that's, I think, the positive side of the changes, aside from all the other changes that I think were really good ones. It's more about the why. Why are we doing Scrum?
And to make some smooth promotion for our book, I think the book is a very good match with the new Scrum Guide, because we don't really offer best practices like one-stop solutions to fix zombie Scrum, but we do offer many experiments, 40 plus, that you can do with your team to explore the space or the gap that the new Scrum Guide offers. So let's explore what you can do with your team to mitigate risks and figure out what works for your own team. So let's go to I see many good questions. I see one from Israel. I work in a software company that bought everything from the Scrum shop from your slide. Awesome. Okay, already
got a discount. They bought everything and they got a discount.
But don't trust Scrum, especially stakeholders. I see myself taking a Scrum police stance and it's very frustrating. Israel, can you maybe elaborate on this a bit?
Yeah, sure. So we were talking in small groups about autonomy. And in this case, what I see is that some of us really trust in the process. I even joined this new company because I believed, yeah, we have this Spotify model, everything, but then it's just the mechanics, but they don't really trust. You've said many things like, do we really care about the done increment? Do we really care about reducing risk? So how to deal with a company like this? Or should I just leave the company?
Sometimes, yes. I had a conversation yesterday with someone who had been working for a company where he'd been trying to create a lot of change, and it wasn't happening. And a lot of people were saying, well, we cannot change things here. That's the way things are. And his response to that was, well, you're not being held hostage at this organization. So if you don't like it, go somewhere else. At the same time, that's obviously not always a good solution because, well, sometimes you just have to fight for what makes an organization change. And I think that what Barry already shared in some of his earlier answers is that the best thing you can do is to creatively create transparency around what's happening because your organization is not using Scrum to reduce the risk of complex work. So what is stakeholder satisfaction like in your organization? How much time do they have to wait until they actually get the features that they asked for? If they get those features, how often is it just implemented completely differently than what the stakeholders expected? I think if you start focusing on those things, the conversation also becomes easier. At least that's our experience with that. It's not easy, but these are the conversations you really need to have.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's sort of like the mantra that Chris and I have, is that what you can always do is create transparency. And it could be like you create transparency about the cycle time or the lead time, or you create transparency just about impediments or conflict or tension. You can just make anything transparent. What you can also do is inspect it together. You can organize meetups, you can organize a workshop, you can organize a session with management or C-level or anyone basically. So you can inspect what's going on together. The adaptation part, that's of course essential. Otherwise, the whole transparency and inspection is pretty meaningless. But adaptation, that's difficult. You can, of course, influence it, but in the end, the organization as a whole do need to agree with changing things, because otherwise all you do, and that's going to be very frustrating, is that week after week you make the same impediments transparent, but if nothing really happens in the organization, well, basically you don't get further. But then again, you can also make that transparent, like if we want to succeed with Scrum in our organization, we cannot just keep doing the same things that we've done for years and then expect Scrum to be a success. So if we really want to succeed with Scrum, things need to go differently. But then again, personally, I've worked with organizations that did adapt and change and succeed with Scrum. I've also worked with organizations that just refused to really make painful changes. And for me, it was also a signal to just move along, go to a different organization. Although I fully understand that's quite easy to say. It's not always that easy, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
And good luck, Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Let's see. Ulysses, you wrote down some questions. Have you spotted interesting questions?
Untranslated. They sent to me untranslated.
So how to convince the C-level that they only know the Scrum zombie, that it can be done better? How can you justify return on the investment? Well, there's a pattern, I think, in our responses. It's always about making transparent what you're trying to achieve with Scrum. And I once did a whole class, a day-long class, to a team, and it was basically the entire company in one room, but there were only 30 people, so that was quite easy. And at the end of the day, the CEO of the company came to me and he said, "You've spent like 3 hours explaining Scrum, but at the end of those 3 hours, you also shared a picture where you visualize how the Scrum framework reduces risk by creating done increments every sprint. If you would have just shown me that visual, you wouldn't have had to explain all those other 3 hours that you spent on explaining Scrum, because for me, that's what it's all about. And if that's what Scrum makes possible, then we're going for it. And I trust that you can work with the team and that the team can decide what's necessary for that." And I think that in a way is the conversation you always need to see. Just show management how it can help them reduce risk, how they can create a healthier business, happier stakeholders. And I totally understand that that's difficult if you work in a large organization. That's why Barry and I always try to build networks to bring together all the Scrum Masters, all the product owners, maybe stakeholders. They have a stake in Scrum and making it work, and work with them to reach management if they're very distant from you. And liberating structures, in all honesty, are a really great way to do that. So if if you haven't done anything with those yet, I highly recommend that you give them a try. It's really wonderful. Maybe Barry has an example of this. I don't know, maybe I'm surprised.
Yeah, no, for example, you could do a user experience fishbowl, invite as many people from the organization as possible, and you have two options. You could put management in the middle of the fishbowl and have management explain what their expectations or worries are about Scrum, or you could flip it and put like one of the teams in the middle and let the teams share what they are experiencing on a daily basis and how Scrum is working for them or is not working for them. You could also do and Chris and I are tremendous fans of that, a strategy, and just type it in the chat, to a strategy not working workshop, which is basically, it could be a 1 hour workshop, a 4 hour workshop, it could be a 1 week workshop. It's just how spectacular you want to make it. But in a nutshell, what we see happening is that strategy is perceived as something that only top level management concerns. So the teams only learn or get to know the strategy via an update on the intranet, on the company's intranet, but they are not involved in shaping it and making it happen. And with a strategy not working workshop, everyone is involved in making and creating this strategy. And for example, it could be like the strategy, how are we going to use Scrum in our organization? What metrics are we going to use? How are we going to determine the team composition? That's something that you can do with everyone in the organization simultaneously. And if you do it like that, then you will see that strategy and Scrum is not something that only concerns management or the teams, but it concerns everyone. So recommendation is do a strategy not working workshop with your team. We can share a link on how to do this workshop afterwards.
Yeah, actually, it's not something that we invented. It's something that the Liberating Structures community has created, especially Johannes Schartau and Keith McCandless together with Fisher Qua. But it's really a wonderful way to create strategy together.
And one final recommendation is actually what Chris explained. Chris, can you go down a couple of slides? Because then you have that comic.
Oh, right.
Yes. Yep. Oh, one back. Yep. So in a nutshell, this is why we believe in an empirical way of working. And Scrum as a term isn't even mentioned over here. So if you would share this with management, you don't annoy them with even more Scrum theory. But in a nutshell, this just explains why empiricism matters. And you can just share this comic with them if you think that they can appreciate it, or just explain the message. In a nutshell, it's more like in complex work, you do a lot of assumptions, and the assumptions is something that you need to validate in order to see if you are on the right track. And Scrum is something that helps you do that, helps you mitigate risk and deliver value sooner. Cool. Yes, we've got a thumbs up from Ulysses.
So time-wise,
we are agree. Estamos de acuerdo.
So time-wise, Barry, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about the book too. Is that something we do now, or do we spend a few more minutes on questions?
I think we can do one more question. Okay. Let's see. Is there another question that we can? Maybe there's a low-hanging fruit. Let's see.
Well, there's another question that Ulysses translated is, if I spot a Scrum zombie, should I say so? How do I alert the team without demotivating it? That's such a good question. It's not a good idea to go into your organization and say, you are a zombie. So in the book, we actually specifically mentioned that we never call people Scrum zombies. We basically call it's a zombie Scrum team. And it's not their fault. Usually it's because the environment is shaped in such a way that they become zombie Scrum teams. But I think the best thing you can do here is just take a look at what you're doing as a team. How often do you have done increments? How are stakeholders involved in the work that you're doing? What does it tell you about how you're working with Scrum? And one of the things that Barry and I are actually working on right now is a zombie Scrum survey. I think maybe, Barry, you can type it into the chat window while I explain it. Oh, yeah, it's basically an online survey, an online tool where you can create transparency with your Scrum team around how is Scrum working for you? And it's a very objective survey. It's based on scientific topics that we turned into questionnaire. And you can do it every once in a while to see where your team is at. And we also give recommendation at the end. So based on your results, you get some feedback from us, including suggestions on what you may take a look at. And this is really something that we recommend that all Scrum teams do, not necessarily with our survey, but make sure you have some objective data to take a look at. And then you don't have to go around pointing and calling people zombies. They can figure out for themselves that what they're doing is not the way Scrum is supposed to work. And it's not fun that way either. So,
yeah. And maybe I'm going to tie the comment by Pablo into the closing slides in relation to that, how to find the courage to fight zombie Scrum. Chris, can you go to slide number 20? And then very quickly,
20. Which one is 20? Let me see.
Yeah, now go. Yeah, next one.
Yes.
So, well, maybe in a nutshell, just know that you are not alone, and also that people around you that you think, hey, they seem to be like zombies. Chris and I strongly believe that everyone can recover from being a Scrum zombie. So don't give up, although I can fully imagine it might maybe seem impossible within your own environment to change anything, but our recommendation is also just to join the wider community. Well, maybe some obvious next steps, and let's just go quickly to them. Chris, can you go to the next one?
Yep.
We already talked about the book. The book can be combined with a zombie Scrum first aid kit. If you go to the next one.
Can I say one thing about the book that we haven't mentioned? So in the book, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek metaphor, zombie Scrum. But what we've done in the book is we diagnose it, kind of like medical professionals, and we analyze, so what actually causes zombie Scrum. We already mentioned some of those causes, but there's a lot more in the book. And we also offer 40 practical experiments that you can try. So for example, one of the things that many zombie Scrum teams struggle with is to involve their stakeholders. So I think we have 12 experiments in the book for how can you actually involve your stakeholders in the work that you're doing. All these experiments, we wrote them with the idea in mind that you work for an organization where you cannot change anything or very little. So even in those situations, what can you do? What can you make transparent to still create progress in how you involve stakeholders, for example? So that's something I want to emphasize. It's not just a theoretical book. We analyze a lot. We go into detail. We give a lot of background information, but it's also incredibly practical.
Yep. And can you go to the next one and the next one and the next one? Yep. Because our recommendation is what Chris just said, just start experimenting. Reading our book, reading other books about Scrum and talking about it with others is awesome, but in the end, nothing changes. So just start applying it, start using it. And most importantly, if you can go to the next one, Chris, share your findings, because it can be tremendously difficult to change anything in your organization, but we are confident that if you combine your findings with others, then you'll discover that you are not alone, that you're also not the only one having some difficulties, and that jointly as a community, we can help each other out in making an impact in your own organization, in your team, in your community, in your environment. That's also the reason that, well, we started working together with Ulysses, because we wanted to support local user groups, and Ulysses actually has the honor, and we are tremendously grateful for him that he took responsibility in setting up the Panama Liberators Network, because we strongly believe that with all these local user groups, we can help each other out in trying experiments, coming up with new experiments, and just really making an impact, making a change in the world of Scrum. So Ulysses, with 2 minutes to go, this is also our moment to give you some praise and to thank you that you well stepped up, took the responsibility, and started organizing these meetups. And yeah.
Well, no, I enjoy it. I learn a lot. No, muchísimas gracias a todos por participar, por su tiempo. Huge thank you to Christian and Barry. We are a great inspiration for all of us about how to be a great Scrum Master, product owners, or whatever roles that we want. Un abrazo gigantesco les estamos enviando. Thank you so much, because I already know how busy you are, guys. I know you are a twister company. That's very difficult to follow, but very thank you for your patience. Para la comunidad, déjeme decirle que estuve hablando con ellos y es muy probablemente que vamos a volver a repetir esta sesión en español en un horario que más gente pueda participar. Probablemente le pido ayuda a Ricardo, le pido ayuda a Yaraví, le pido ayuda a Pablito, a todos. Guys, Tristan, Barry, I tell you them that we want to repeat the session with the translation to bring more people to know about your work. So that's why I'm telling them. Thank you so much. I hope you see you soon.
Cool.
See you soon. Take care. Good luck all.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Todo ha quedado grabado. Todo ha quedado grabado. Everything is recorded and streamed in YouTube. So, yeah. Liberators.
Take care,
Huge
everyone.
hug.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Ulysses. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you,
Take
Christian,
care.
Barry. Bye-bye. Bueno, mi gente, ¿qué les voy a decir? Bueno, ya sabemos. Esta noche también tenemos, ¿qué tenemos? Tenemos la sesión para el Agiles, así que bueno, seguiremos trabajando al respecto. Christian, Barry, bye bye. Un abrazo.
Bye-bye. See you soon,
Bye.
Ulysses.